Welcome to studio0more. My name is Miro and here is
Anirudhan Iyengar, and you can call me Ani.
And we will guide you through the semester. So we will engage with this interesting word synthetic, with synthesis, with bringing things together, in a way with connecting. And as you can see from the cover, we are in Venice. So we in a way went to 2025 Venice Biennale because we like this idea of intelligence. We like working with artificial intelligence. And when we went to the Venice Biennale, you get this feeling, it's nice, everyone is empathic, we really care about the planet, everyone is politically correct. We are trying to capture a lot of carbon, and we use our technologies and intellect to do these kind of things. But in a way, the underlying kind of story, in a way, becomes something like, it's a kind of a confession, how much carbon did you use? How much carbon did I use? I'm much better than you, this kind of moral stuff. And then it's almost like lighting candles, which you made out of mushrooms, which are kind of helping you to create biodegradable bricks. It almost feels like you are in a kind of a church about nature and gods and biomimicry and these kind of things. You get a feeling that somehow architecture forgot how to laugh, how to disagree, how to think in different ways, how to think beyond common topics which are constantly addressed on Arc Daily. Can you, in a way, tell me a story which is beyond these five standard narratives? So in one word, what we thought is that this Biennale was a little bit too analytical, yeah? And then in a way, this beautiful word of synthesis, of synthetic, we wanted to use this as a kind of an opposition, or not really an opposition, as a kind of a provocation, how to engage with this year's Architecture Biennale. So when we say synthesis, we think synthesis not in opposition to analysis. Yeah. So on one hand, you have the analysis, which is kind of cutting up things. Yeah. Not in a way as an opposition between those two, but also not as an opposition between synthetic and then natural. Yeah. So you have synthetic clothes and then you have cotton clothes. Yeah. Not in this synthetic natural, and also not in a sense of synthetic versus artificial. Yeah. You could say that they are almost synonyms, but not really, because or artificial is the opposite of natural in a way. Yeah? While synthetic can be also a combination between something which is natural and which is artificial. Yeah? So a kind of a hybrid setup. So I think synthetic is a little bit different than artificial as well. So for us, this synthetic is more in a sense of these Greek synthetikos, like we've seen, skilled in putting together, yeah? In a way constructive, not in a way as the analytics is always trying to, not to distract, but to section, yeah? So we are about combining and bringing things together.
So the Biennale this year was curated by an architect called Escarlo Ratti, which was called Intelligens, Artificial, Natural, and Collective, where they were looking at it as a laboratory where various forms of intelligence can be explored. There is a little bit of pun over here where intelligence is not with GENCE, but it's intelligens, which is people. So that's what he wanted to play around, and it was one of the biggest biennales with the most amount of participants. This year we felt it was too analytical, and that's why we want to intervene and we want to play with what more can the biennale give. Can the biennale be more about imagination and laughter and playfulness, and not just about efficiency or optimization or analysis? So going back to what the brief was talking about of the biennale, and then we look at what's the scenario. So now you know what the topic is about. We are looking at the idea of synthetic, a synthetic which is not the opposition to analysis or to nature or artificial. What the Biennale did, the Biennale had a lot of people talking about analytical stuff, and then we want to bring a little bit of playfulness, a little bit of imagination to the Biennale. So the scenario is François-Henri Pinault, is also like us, frustrated with the Biennale. And he wants to create a counter gesture. So he's funding something called as a floating pavilion in the lagoon that talks about intelligence in a synthetic way. This is how the island or the archipelago of Venice looks. This is where the Biennale happens, which is the Giardini, and the Arsenale is here. This is the beautiful canals of Venice. So we would like you to situate your pavilion somewhere over here. Now it completely depends on where you situate yourself. Either you situate yourself in front of this basilica, or you situate yourself in front of the Palazzo Ducale, or you situate yourself in front of the Biennale in the canal. And how do you justify that? So that's the studio project. A little example is this beautiful floating pavilion by Aldo Rossi that he had proposed in Venice, and this exactly what I was meaning by where do you kind of situate it. So this was situated in front of the Palazzo Ducale, and there was a small theater inside. So this building is not a building which has a function, but it has an identity. It wants to say something, it wants to talk something, and it's housing a small function or a program. So the studio is about designing this pavilion. And what are the different tools that you will need to design this pavilion? So we look at the different tools, or we look at the triads. We are looking at the triads from Vitruvius. We'll give you an introduction of what Vitruvius is, and we look at the three aspects of Vitruvius's a triad, which is iconography, orthography, or scenography. And we will decode this triad into multiple ways all along the studio. So you can also see it as text, prompt, and code. Text is what the artificial intelligence like ChatGPT is trained on. You have a prompt, you ask what it is, and through the code, it gives you a world, like a story back. In the architectural sense, it's the plan, section, and the scene. Plan is what you see from the top, section is what you see from the side, and scene is the view of the building or the design. Then there is comprehension, understanding, and synthesis, conceived, perceived, and experienced, text, image, model, firmitas, utilitas, venustas, and natural, artificial, and synthetic.
And in the studio, what we always do is we play with artificial intelligence. What we think today is that through artificial intelligence, what one can do is work with a lot of objects. Yeah. So before you had to work only with a few. Now you can, for instance, with ChatGPT, you work with the whole language. So we work with artificial intelligence and we go through three different media. So you write a text to constitute your project, you make a movie to temper it, and then you develop models to enact them. For each one of these three, we have a custom artificial intelligence and we will use a general artificial intelligence. So for instance, for text, we use Alice and ChatGPT. For movies, we use panoramas of cinema and Midjourney and so on. And by telling your story through different media, you get a kind of a richness and beauty. But the point of the studio is to tell an interesting story about the world today. And in this case, it's about intelligence. Yeah. So we are looking forward to see you at the studio. We will start on the second at 11 o'clock at Studio 2.
Yes.
Thank you
See
very
you
much
there.
and see you soon.
See you soon.